Our program in earnest, ladies and gentlemen. You are all aware that the university is reeling with shock at the loss of one of our lecturers who was actually killed this last Saturday. That was Miss Avitha Dudnath, 30 years of age. She was a law lecturer at this university where she lectured policing law. She was also a gender activist and legal researcher for Helen Suzman Foundation, those of you who would know her. Apparently, she was found dead inside her car that was near what we call Johannesburg Zoo Lake in Parktown on Saturday. Apparently in what was attempted hijacking. Ms. Dudnath reportedly led the campaign against gender-based violence at VUT, those of you who will actually work closely with her, especially after the killing of the University of Cape Town student Uyinene Mkhwetana. The university management, staff and students wish to extend our deepest condolences to her family and friends for this tragic loss, to whom we offer our support and prayers. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to stand up just to observe a moment of silence. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Colleagues, I would like to formally acknowledge the following people on stage, which is our MENCOM that you see on stage. The VUT administrator, Professor Aaron van Rensbeck, which is here on my immediate right-hand side. Mr. Neo Masulubela, who's the Executive Director Finance Acting. And we've got Professor Patrick Hadebe, who's the Executive Director Human Resources. I've got also Professor Roy Jurap, who's the DVC Resources and Planning, also acting. And then I've got Professor Rihanna van der Bank, the DVC Teaching, Learning and Student Support Services, also acting. This is our management committee. Sorry, I'm sorry. Sorry. My apology. And I'm already fired because he's my new boss. And then we've got Dr. Den Mukwena, our registrar. Thank you. He's my new boss, by the way. Thank you. Colleagues, give you a big round of applause. Colleague, I would like also to acknowledge some of the important stakeholders here in this room, the executive deans of the faculties. Professor Raymond Mabuza is present with us here. Professor Maurice Ndege from the Faculty of Engineering and Technology. Dr. Lazarus Maleho, Faculty of Human Sciences, he's the acting dean there, as well as Professor Aubrey Mokwena, also acting dean in the Faculty of Management Sciences. Also amongst us, we've got members of the Senior Management Forum present, the VUT Senior Management present, the university's support staff, the academic and administrative heads of department present, as well as associate professors present. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you. As I have actually mentioned in the beginning, we've got a very short space of time to actually try and make sure that we run this program as effectively as possible. Without wasting time, I would like to introduce Professor Aaron Rensbeck, who is the VUT administrator. I will read his CV, impressive CV. And when my colleagues gave this CV to me, they said, Mr. Kumoni, please just take what is very important. But when I looked at it, everything was important. I said, look, I'll just in any way just go through it. Professor Rensbeck has accumulated over 30 years of thought leadership, change management, as well as executive leadership management experience. This includes 12 years in the role of university principal and vice chancellor, you recall UJ, 5 years in the role of public broadcasting, chief executive, and 7 years in the role of senior public service executive. He has a proven track record in visioning, strategic planning, development and execution, organizational design and policy development and analysis. His experience in building, inspiring, and driving teams to perform and achieve extraordinary results, notably in measures, is widely acknowledged. He has extensive and proven conflict management and relationship building skills. Prof. Rensbeck has widely acknowledged human resource and identity brand development experience and skills, and has extensive government, education, business, and civil society strategic networks, and equally extensive international networks. He is a widely sought after global keynote speaker at leadership conferences, colloquium, and summits. Professor Rensbeck is a chairperson of the South African UNESCO National Commission, also administrator of Vaal University of Technology, and chairperson of the Ministerial Committee on the Review of Science, Technology, Innovation Institutional System. He is the advisor to the principal and visiting professor at King's College London, honorary professor at Nelson Mandela University, and chairperson of the International Advisory Panel for the Pontifical Universidad de Chile. He was the Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg from 2006 to 2017, prior to which he was a Chief Executive of Strategic Services at the South African Broadcasting Corporation, a Deputy Director General of South Africa's Department of Education, and Executive General Secretary of South Africa's Anti-Apartheid Movement, the National Education Crisis Committee. Prof. Rensbeck was a commissioner of South Africa's National Planning Commission that developed the country's first National Development Plan 2030, where he chaired the Working Group on Social Protection and Human Capabilities, together with South Africa's Deputy Minister of Basic Education. Prof. Rensbeck is a core chairperson of Education Dialogue South Africa that brings together civil society, labor, and educational experts in dialogue about contemporary legislative policy and practice concerned in school education. He serves as a chairperson of the Higher Education Ministerial Committee on the Provision of Student Housing in South Africa, a member of Higher Education Ministerial Committee on Review and Funding of South African Universities, an advisor to the South African Human Rights Commission on Transformation in South African Universities. He also served as executive committee member of Universitas 21, the world's leading network of 25 research-intensive universities. He's also a chairperson of South African Universities Vice Chancellors Association, chairperson of the South African Universities Vice Chancellors Association, Councillor of the Association of Commonwealth Universities, and Governor of the Commonwealth of Learning. Prof. Rensbeck was honored with an honorary fellow of King's College in 2019 and received the degree LLD honoris causa from the University of the West Indies in 2017. He holds the Doctor of Philosophy degree in International Comparative Education at Stanford University, USA, where he completed his dissertation with a distinction titled Collective Identity and Public Policy, From Resistance to Reconstruction in South Africa, 1986 to 1995. He holds a master's degree in political and organizational sociology, also from Stanford University, USA, and the Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from Rhodes University, South Africa. In 2004, he completed, with distinction, the Global Executive Development Program at the Graduate Institute of Business Science, that is GIBS in Pretoria, with distinction titled Unleashing Peak Performance and Resilience in Times of Great Challenge, How True Leaders Make Difference. Prof. Rensbeck received the following awards: University of Southern Carolina President's Medal for Outstanding Global Service to Higher Education Scholarship in 2014, Le Matinal Africa India Leadership Award for Outstanding Contribution to Leadership in Education in Africa, 2011, Metropolitan Eastern Cape, South Africa Award for Leadership in Education in 2006, Human Science Research Council Social Movement Research Fellowship in 1995, Ford Foundation Research Grant 1995, W.K. Kellogg Foundation International Fellowship in 1992 to 1996, Meg Sharp and Dome Pharmaceutical Scholarship in 1979 to 81, Berkshire Kipot Bursary in 1978, and Rhodes University Entrance Bursary in 1978. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Professor Aaron Rensbeck. Please come on stage.
Good morning, colleagues. Dumelang, Sanvanan. So our Director of Ceremonies has just used 10 valuable minutes that we could have used for good conversation. The upside with this is that this won't be repeated again, at least while I'm here at VUT, so it's out of the way. So I begin by saying that it's a very special privilege and honor to be with you here this morning, together with the Management Committee and with other colleagues in the senior leadership of the university. And so I begin by acknowledging the leaders from our organized labor formations, Nteo and Nahau. I guess I'm going to be asked, why did I say Nteo first and Nahau second? Let me therefore acknowledge the leaders of these two recognized labor formations. And of course, let me recognize each one of you who've been able to set aside time to join us this morning. And so it is clear that we have an enormous task in front of us. It is clear that our institution, which has been twice under administration in the last decade, and if you cast your gaze further, three times in the last 2 decades, then it means that there is something fundamentally wrong. There is a deep-seated set of troubles that afflict our institution and that have caused us to become, in effect, a pariah institution. I've said previously in my conversations with MAMCOM and the Executive Management Committee, as well as with Labour and with student organizations, that it is simply not okay to be the conversation point from Stokvels and Shebeens and Braais through to local government council meetings, provincial executive meetings, through to the cabinet meetings for the wrong reasons. I guess in South African lingo, the word paluka or mampara, or what is the other one? What's that other one in Swashu? Momish. It's simply not okay to be the mampara in the conversation. As I say, from Stokvels and Shebeens and Braais right through to cabinet. And that conversation sparked three times over the last 2 decades. And so I have shared the metaphor of a ship on the rocks that is taking water. And it's taken water now for the 3rd time in 2 decades. I think it's self-evident to everyone that our institution is still driven by factions. When the assessor's report is eventually published, and I hope sooner rather than later, because the report has now been tabled with the President, with the Minister, it will lay out chapter and verse the troubles of our institution, and it is likely to recommend radical intervention and action. And so, for example, in my briefing with Professor Spikana and Relebipi Simela, the assessors, they spoke about an institution that is adrift. That our institution simply does not have strategic direction, that its decision-making is erratic, and they use the examples of insourcing, equal pay for equal work, temporary contract staff, as examples of erratic decision-making, lacking vision and strategic purpose and intent. They speak of recruitment policies as another sample or example of this erratic decision-making. People are brought in informally, and then, of course, they have the expectation to become permanent. They highlight that several positions are not on the organogram, but positions are filled. They speak of a culture of women who are appointed on sexual favors. They speak of an academic enterprise where leadership and management is absent, student success rates in decline, again the absence of cohesiveness of a plan. And they speak of mission drift away from science, engineering, and technology. They speak of our institution being an institution of last resort. And they refer to what they believe is a sharp decline in the quality of our entering students. They are puzzled that our residences are not learning and living spaces. They're concerned that technology in use is virtually non-existent. They say that our satellite campuses lack a plan and a vision. And so they speak about institutional coherence being missing in action. They also highlight the concern that we need to address of student attributes and of graduate attributes. And so that's just a sample, just to give you a feel, give us a feel as to what are some of the things that will be put out, our dirty laundry that will be put out in the public domain. And so, we are an institution that's riven by factions, one that lacks accountability, one that strategy is absent in, one in which functional governance has failed. You just have to look at procurement. I mean, how is it possible for us to have a situation where we are seeking to fix failures in student town by way of example, spend 37 million or whatever that amount is, and what are we trying to do? We're trying to fix old galvanized pipes that had eroded, corroded, and water's flushing in to the bathrooms and onto the floors of the various parts of the student town. We then bring in an external supplier to come and fix those galvanized pipes. A couple of weeks later, students are back and the flooding continues. All that's happened is that the service provider has just plastered over, not fixed the pipes. We've paid the bills. So what does that tell us? That is an example of functional governance failure, catastrophic functional governance failure. Part of this functional governance failure that we have to confront is this thing called upward delegation, where decision making is deferred upwards. So an executive director does not take responsibility, simply defers upward. Let the decision be made by others. On top of that, we had, until recently at least, two management structures with overlapping and confused roles, ManCom and EMC. Not sure which one is decision making. And so we've cleaned that up by way of example. One of the consequences of functional governance failure has been that we find ourselves in a financial crisis. Just to illustrate now, strategic governance failure, separate from functional governance failure. This is where council fails, the governing body. So management goes to council and says, here is our proposal for a salary adjustment for 2019, 2020. Council says, I call, we don't have money. 0% salary adjustment. What do you call that? And so the unions protest and causes chaos in the institution, and then management buckles, right? and agrees to 7.5. So where does that 7.5 come from? And so think about this. Think about this. Already we're sitting with positions frozen across the institution. Now 7.5% of 900 million. How much is that? Call it 70 million. So now we have to freeze even more posts in order to finance the salary adjustment. Isn't that wonderful thinking? And so we're in a financial crisis as a consequence of that and many other missteps that have been made in the institution. One of the things that is deeply worrying is the absence of confidentiality. And what else can one call it than trading information? We trade information. We trade confidential information in order to help effectively a crime syndicate steal the institution away from us. Because that's effectively what's happened under our noses here. Is the institution is being stolen piece by piece by piece. And part of that stealing project or theft project is to trade information. And that information feeds factionalism again in the institution. And that's got to stop. It's going to have to stop. As a consequence, many parts of the institution is paralyzed, or are paralyzed. Management, many parts of management paralyzed. And so in an emergency, it's going to require emergency mode. We're in emergency. This emergency that we find ourselves has catastrophic consequences for students in the first instance, their families, their communities, our nation, and the other nations that many of them come from. Because everybody depends on progress, on success, on accomplishment. Equally so, members of staff, yourself, if this institution crashes, if it crashes financially, if it crashes across the board, what happens to each one of us? In a context where unemployment is close to 30%. And so it is a crisis. It's an emergency mode that we find ourselves in. It's going to require an emergency response from each one of us. And so I want to be clear that, yes, I've been parachuted in to the institution in the hope that in the first instance I'm going to help us come to senses, come to our senses, wake up from our dreams, pull ourselves together, remobilize ourselves. And I'm speaking across the board. I'm sure, and I know that there are exceptions, where many of you are performing exceptionally well. But if we look at the institution as a collective, we've got trouble. Big trouble. And so yes, I've been parachuted in to bring to our attention that we've got to wake up, or else we're going to crash this institution, or else as it sits on the rocks, it's taking water and it's going to go down. But we're going to have to do this together. Each one of us is required to pick ourselves up after having dusted ourselves off. Get up. Yes, knocked down, but not knocked out. Knocked down, but not knocked out. So we're going to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and rise to the occasion. And so it's going to require emergency response. You see, by that I also mean that if we keep on doing the same thing and expect a different result, what's the problem with us? There's a problem with us. Intellectually, there's a problem with us. If we keep on doing the same thing over and over again, expect a different result, And so, by doing more of the same is not going to generate a different result. And so, to get a different result is going to require doing things differently. And that's my appeal to us. And so we're going to have to walk and speak and act differently. Not like victims. Not like people who are broken. People who are defeated. What is required for us in this emergency situation is for ourselves to dust ourselves off in every respect. Intellectually, etc. We're going to have to dust ourselves off so that we begin to walk and speak and act differently. Because if we're going to do the same stuff, it's not going to generate a different result. We're going to have to see in our walk. We're going to have to see in the way we speak. We're going to have to see in the way we act, the things we do. We're going to have to see that. Because when each one of us begins to do that, imagine what 2,000 of us can achieve. And so we're going to have to get our institution working again for the public good, not for factions and rogues and crime syndicates. We're going to have to shift our institution from Paluka, Mampara, Mumish, whatever you want to call it status, to an admired status. It's going to require each one of us. And we're going to have to show up. I'll come back to that as I conclude. And so what have we been doing in the meanwhile? Just some pointers. Many of us will be aware that the SNG forensic report has been sitting with us for almost a year now. Today I will advise MANCOM of the disciplinary actions that will be taken. And so those disciplinary actions will begin tomorrow. In respect of vacant positions in senior management, there are some priorities that we've set for ourselves. We said we must fill the Deputy Vice-Chancellor positions, and we're determined to begin to fill them one at a time, eventually all of them before the end of November. The area of logistics and operations is probably the area that is most prone to corruption. And so we have made an appointment of a new executive director for that portfolio. We hope that this person will accept our offer and will commence very soon to take up that job. Position of Dean of Engineering, we will conduct interviews next week. We've had to go headhunting for candidates, so we hope again to make an appointment very soon. CFO position, we have advertised for that position. We will be having in place an interim CFO as part of the administrators team to help us get over the hill in the course of the next 6 months or so, and we hope during that course to make a permanent appointment. Two other critical posts that we are don't want to say desperate, that we're keen to fill in the next few weeks as well, couple of weeks, is Director Student Housing and Director Student Life and Governance. These are critical positions, and we will shortlist candidates tomorrow, and we will interview candidates in the next week or so, and we hope to make appointments to those positions as well. A critical part of our work is to cohere around a strategic plan. A lot of work has gone into the development of the strategic plan. I'm happy to say that as the administrator, I signed off on that plan. That's called Strategic Plan 2024. And that plan is the plan around all of us should be cohering, and that gives us the strategic direction. And as I say, it becomes the means for cohering us as we go forward. We've also discussed some catalytic actions to catalyze our institution, to signal shift and change in the institution, in its mood, in its focus, in its actions. And I can just share with you some of these that were debated and agreed upon last year in Management Committee. First is that we're going to be implementing swiftly an online student registration, including late application. Second, we're going to give immediate attention to securing our exams and record-keeping processes. We'll be implementing an early warning and tracking system to enable us to improve student success, in particular undergrad student and first-year student success. Student safety, staff safety, and student residence rehabilitation. That is a fourth and critical focal point for us. We're not going to repeat the mess that we made in the last 12 months. That I'm very clear about. That all of us are very clear about. We're going to commence immediately with the refurbishment of Meropa, and that will become our means for decanting or for moving students from student town in there, so that we can accelerate fixing student town. We're also giving attention to Kolomani and to Kutlanong residences. So those are our priority residences to fix, and to fix quickly, certainly by the end of June of next year. I'll come back to the issue of staff and student safety and security in a moment. We also, fifthly, are giving attention to building our research niches and centers of excellence in the institution, and we will soon be going through a process with clear criteria on how we're going to build upon our existing strengths and grow these into national and continental and global areas of strength of our institution. Next, we will review, not next, but simultaneously, we are reviewing our vacant positions in line with the review of our organizational structure. Now that we've approved the organizational strategy, we will now align our organizational structure, and that's going to be our means then for unfreezing critical posts based upon that realignment process. We will implement performance management in the institution. And we will commence with post levels 1 to 5 in the immediate term. We'll also review we'll in fact accelerate the review of our satellite campus feasibility and viability. There's going to be some unhappy decisions that we're going to have to make about some of our satellite campuses. It seems to me that we're going to have to cohere the institution going forward around Vanderbijl campus, Vanderbijl Park campus, around our campus in Sebokeng, and potentially around a new site in Ekurhuleni That's where we're going to have to cohere the institution into the next two and 3 decades. We're going to have to accelerate next our campus-wide hi-fi. I call them deliberately high-speed internet access. Not just internet access, but high-speed internet access. That's going to have to be accelerated. In respect of our academic staff, we are going to give detailed attention and try and accelerate our academic staff qualification program. Now, in respect of there are 3 matters that I want to share, and then I'm going to stop. So we spent quite a bit of time since I arrived with ManCom reviewing the work that had been done by the outsourcing task team. Yesterday, we received the final report in this respect, and yesterday we approved the plan to insource over the 5-year period, 20 to 24, to insource our protection services function. It's going to be a 5-year period. I think next year we begin with insourcing 87, or at least in the immediate term we will begin the process of insourcing the first group, and that would be the, if you like, the core component, the senior members of the team, the higher grade of protection service officers. And we expect that come February next year, you will begin to see that group of 87 wearing new uniforms, reflecting them as VUT staff. Of course, before I make that point, I have to go to the next point. The next point, of course, is about contract staff. Again, this is a matter that I had asked us to give more detailed attention to. Initially, we had a very long list of colleagues who had been identified. We then began to put in place some criteria, very clear criteria. And in particular, we were concerned about those colleagues on contract, 1-year contracts that are renewed, some for many years now, decades. We were concerned about those colleagues who are those in particular who earn less than the benchmark set in terms of the basic conditions of service legislation. And so yesterday we approved that list. And so those colleagues who have had their contracts rolled over more than once, we will be offering them a 3-year term contract which will be performance-based. And so that obviously will also apply to the in-source protection services staff, where they have worked for the university for more than a year. They will also be offered a performance-based 3-year term contract. A key part of improving our protection services in the institution, or improving our safety in the institution of staff and of students, key part of that work is going to focus on biometric access control. And so we're going to require your partnership in this. We're going to require your partnership in this. I remember when we did this work when I was at University of Johannesburg, we had a storm in a teacup. Not from the point of view of students, because students only wanted to put the finger and go. And we said, no, we want double security. You're going to carry your card, you're going to scan your card, and you at the same time are going to use your finger or whatever as your biometric access control. And so I'm going to ask us to work together on implementing that project. And so finally, Finally, one of the areas that is troubling and exceptional is that in respect of student accommodation, we sign lease agreements with private providers. That means that we, as I tongue-in-cheek say, we guarantee their breakfast, their lunch, their dinner, and their holidays. This is the onus of these residences. That is unacceptable. The effect of that is that the university pays over 200 million rands a year in in payments directly to these operators. In addition to that, we do their administrative work for them. We do a whole range of other things for them for free. And so this is an issue that we debated yesterday again at ManCom, and we made some decisions. One big decision is that we're going to transition ourselves out of this arrangement. We're going to transition ourselves out of this arrangement beginning end of next year. And we're going to move to an accreditation system. What that means is that the owners are going to have to collect come 2021 and 2022. They're going to have to collect their and raise their income from the students directly. And so those are some of the big decisions that we have had to take in the last month in particular. And finally, to say that if we can make this kind of decisions that are aimed simply at moving our institution forward now and out of the mess, out of the crisis, into new possibilities, each one of us is going to have to now rise to the occasion. Each one of us is going to have to rise to the occasion, from management, senior, to middle management, to supervisory, to each one of us in the organization, in the institution. And so all I want to say as I close off is, for those of us who have not done so yet, it is time to show up. This is a sport metaphor that I like to use. We're South Africans in the main, but I think all Africans, we love sport. And we get taken out when we watch that, Buccaneers, defeat Chiefs. Okay, all right. Okay, whoever, right? Cape Town City, being defeated by Sundowns by way of example, right? We always look, we are transported from where we are, our oppression, political, economic, social, our oppression as women, yeah, our sense of being devalued. We are transported out of that moment. We call it, I guess, escapism. We're transported as we watch that game or that match. And we become personally involved in it. It's life and death. I mean, imagine this big game coming on Sunday, at midday on Sunday, our time. The Springboks against Amabokoboko against Japan. Yeah? That's going to be a hell of a game, right? I think we're all a little bit worried. If you're not a little bit worried about Japan, then I think you have to begin to rethink. The way they managed Ireland and Scotland was simply amazing. And those of you who love rugby and watch it, you could see they were fantastic at the breakdown. They were amazing in the handling of the ball and the speed with which they played. I hope it will become clear why I go to this detail. And so what happens if the Springboks on Sunday pitch up but don't show up? Just think about that. They'd over-prepared for the match. Yeah? Imagine that possibility. They'd so over-prepared for the match that when the moment comes, they run onto the pitch, they sing the national anthem. By the end of the first half, the score is 21-3 in favor of Japan. Yeah? I mean, this is what we watch out for, as I used to be a provincial football coach in the apartheid era. Yeah? And this is something that many of us who have keen eyes for sport, any kind of sport, keen eye, we look for, we watch. We can see in the first 10 minutes of that game, you'll be able to say what's going to happen. Yeah? Yes, there will be adjustments in the strategies and tactics. There will be new players coming on in the second half. But those first 10 minutes tell us about the competing teams or players. And so here's the thing. We often speak about the team still being in the locker room. You know that expression? There's another one that says the team is still on the bus to the match. The match has started, they are there physically, but they're still on the bus to the match. Or they are still there in the locker room, or whatever expression we use. What that really means is that they are not emotionally and intellectually present at that moment. They are physically present, but intellectually missing. And that is what faces us now. It is about being physically present, but also intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, in every respect being present. And as we say, to show up. That is our call as management. That's my call as the administrator to each one of us. Please, that Friday, Monday, regularly off. You know that expression of the coat or the jacket or the whatever is there, but the person is missing. So there are two kinds of situations. There's that one, and there's the other one where the person is sitting in the chair but not present. We've got to turn that around. We've got to make ourselves accountable. We've got to perform. We've got to, in other words, show up. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Rensbeck. Thank you very much for those outlining. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you have been probably watching the big screens here. There is an email that has been given to us to give it to you so that people who've got suggestions can actually throw those suggestions in that email. What is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, the MENCOM, under the leadership of Prof. Rensbeck, will actually issue a communique to all VUT community regarding the responses of what is happening, what we're saying here, what the MENCOM will be achieving as we move forward. So this newsletter will try by all means that we issue it twice a month, so that you are also kept informed of the progress that the MENCOM is actually achieving as they move towards setting the what called the institution back on track, as Prof. Rensbeck has said. We have also decided that those colleagues of us who don't have access to emails, we have actually designed suggestion boxes that will be put in strategic areas. I'm sure it shows up there: the library, project and services, the A blocks, residences, where you can actually throw your suggestions or your input regarding the issues on administration as well as on academic issues. What will happen, I'll be working together with my team, especially the Director of Strategic Management, to actually sift through these what we call questions and inputs, categorize them, and present it to management for their response. This will happen immediately once we receive the what we call your inputs or suggestions. The other thing, colleagues, that I would like to mention here is that we have also set aside for this session the questions and answer sessions, which is currently going to happen. But I will actually want to structure this in this format so that, because I'm mindful of the time as well as the fact that management still has got other engagements besides this. Here among us, we've got Nehau as well as Ntewu. Those are the two recognized unions. I will expect I'll give them the opportunity to, each of them, to give us probably 2 questions or suggestions or inputs. Thereafter, I will move to academic staff. Academic staff, same thing. 2 questions that either one of them will be on administration or academic on academic issues. It could be inputs or what have you, but we will be noting those inputs. As we are talking now, this is recorded. We are going to actually access this, what we call recording, to actually make sure that we have those questions or inputs taken care of so that they reach the destination that has been intended for that of the MENCOM to address. And then we are going to have also questions from the support staff, also 2 questions. And then, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you have got other questions, because we cannot take all questions at once, please just throw that on the email. You don't have to put your name or what. Just say whatever you want to say. We'll actually make sure that we do that. All right. Shall we now give this opportunity to Nehau? Please don't ask me why. There are roaming mics around. My colleagues will be actually helping you to actually take those questions.
Prof. Iron Rensbeck uzonqoba qina. Colleagues, good morning. Prof, we welcome you at VUT as Nehau. senior management team, you've got a gigantic work that is facing you. Let me first acknowledge the presentation that has been given to us. It speaks volume. It touches on the issues that we have been rhetoric about. This is what Nehau was standing for. And it has taken the administrator a month to take decision in this regard. Prof, we salute you. We feel and we wish that your management team must follow you as an example. I strongly feel with this leadership collective that the 2 years that we have been given, it will simply not be enough for you to conclude this task that is facing you. The reason I'm saying that, it is something to take home, that what will happen post that 2 years. We don't want to say that we'll support you post 2 years, but we are saying that it will be desirable based on what we have displayed. You have given us vision. You have given us hope where we hope. Actually, VUT, as we speak, we are confused, not knowing where we are going. But with these 2 months that you have ascended at VUT, the confusion that has befallen us, at least the myth is starting to unclear. Having said that, we've got the role as organized labor that we must play. As much as all these progressive input have been given to us, we've got the request at VUT for workers to be treated with dignity and respect. The reason I'm saying this, Prof, it is that workers at VUT have traded same waters for more than 10 years. And today we are giving them 3 years contract. That is not enough. Section 198 dictates that every employee must be accorded. Every employee must be accorded a fair and a just treatment that is equitable. 3 years is only an introduction. This is one issue that we are going to fight as Nehau, that these workers who have been left in the periphery be treated like everyone else. We are invoking, and I'm happy that I'm saying it in the midst of everyone, Nehau will be invoking a full Section 198 from now going forward. A full 198 will simply mean that our executive director, human resources, must up the sources and begin to deal with this issue as from today going forward. Colleagues, I'm intimidated. Prof, we acknowledge the manner in which we have dealt with residences. We have been saying as Nehau that we are losing more than 200 million in residences alone. The economy that was supposed to be circulated amongst VUT inhabitants so to better the conditions of the working class. It has taken you only a month to identify that there was a malaise in residences, and we have acted upon it. We salute you. That 240 million is going to save this VUT community. I have heard you in your deliberation. You have indicated that there are vacant positions that must be filled urgently. And we have specifically noted level 1 to level 5. VUT is not run by level 1 to level 5. Level 1 to level 5 cannot be a priority. We are calling upon a simultaneous fair treatment, just equitable treatment that encompasses everyone. I'm raising this for a reason, because the downtrodden have been neglected, but we have been prioritizing positions there. And I'm happy that you are saying there was no leadership at VUT because the upward delegation was the order of the day. Take your senior management to account. We'll support them as in a how. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Prof. Rensbeck, I don't know whether probably you would like to respond or probably take a stock of questions. All right, I'll take another set of questions, please, and then do it. Thank you very much, Joseph. We've noted your inputs and question. Now, can I have the other union Teu? Please just say, introduce yourself, who you are, because we are recording so that we know who spoke. Nteu, please come on board.
Hi, good morning all. My name is Kimberly and I'm the secretary for Nteu. And I'd just like to say, VUT community, the winds of change are blowing and they are blowing strong. And Prof. Rensberg, we commend you. We thank you, and let it be known you do not stand alone, for we will stand behind you, and we will support you in the strive to take VUT into a better place. In Teu, as always, we stand hand in hand with Niau, and we echo their sentiments, for we all work together to strive for the greater good of the employees of the university. But the one question that I would like to pose to you today is, what is the way forward with regards to the ever-increasing discrimination and harassment that is taking place from senior management down? What are the steps that are going to be implemented to ensure that our employees are safe, that this practice will come to an abrupt end? Because a lot of our female staff especially feel insecure, feel violated, feel threatened, and are too scared to take the necessary steps, grievance procedures, disciplinary hearings, or whatever is required, because the harassment increases, the violence increases. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, for that. Can I give Prof. Rensbeck a chance to respond, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, both to Joe and to Kimberly. Let me be very clear that as an activist who was one of the founders of one of the largest trade unions in the country, I'm not going to mention who, but I simply want to say that I don't have any expectation that we're going to have a sweetheart relationship with Labour. I don't have any expectation for that. I have every expectation that both Nteu and Nahau will represent their members fearlessly. Of course, your members are also our staff. And so we are going to, from time to time, have to put our heads together on some of the difficult issues. I want to just make a couple of brief comments. In respect of Joe's comments about Section 198, apologies, yeah, you said Section, yeah. I don't want to introduce Section 189. By that, I simply want to say that we need to be cautious an institution that is on the rocks and taking water, that is financially destitute, if you push the organization beyond the 3-year contracts to a range of other things, and I won't go into those, there's grave risk that that poses to the rest of staff in the institution. And so members of staff who have been permanently employed for years and who look forward to completing their labor, intellectual and otherwise, in the institution may not be able to do so. And hence there is, unfortunately, also Section 189. Which does mean that if the institution finds itself in the deep end or at the deep end financially, because it is pushed now to the next stage. The first stage, you know this thing about the camel in the tent. Yeah, push the nose first in, then push the head in of the camel into the tent. The next thing you wake up, the whole camel is in the tent. I mean, as Mancom, we are aware of those tactics and strategies equally, right? And so we're already anticipating what could happen next. And so all I want to say is, for those of us who are not familiar with these various sections, Section 189 effectively gives the management of an institution the possibility of shutting down parts of the operations in order for that organization to continue to function and to continue to serve, or at least to continue to provide employment possibilities for those who remain behind. And so all that I'm saying is that we are entering a complex and a high-risk game. And so, of course, we can see that on your agenda, Joe, for your meeting next week, we see one of the items there is full-scale implementation. So all that I'm saying is, please, there is a health warning. There's a red light also flashing to say to us, as I would say, since I'm from the Eastern Cape, you know, masahamba, masijonga la ndlela kakuhle, masithatha iminyathelo, yabona, kancinci. So just one quick one on the issue, or two quick, so the other 2 points were about residences. Just quickly to note, just for clarification, that this 200 million plus, that money comes from NSFAS, and we act as an agent, not for ourselves, but we act as an agent for these private owners, or owners of private accommodation. And so I think what I'm hearing, or what I've been hearing you say, is that it would be a great day when we do have student accommodation of our own. Now, of course, I think we must be pragmatic and realistic and recognize that in order for us to put in place accommodation will cost us on average 250,000 rands a new bed. So to put 1,000 new beds in will cost us 250 million. To put 2,000 beds in will cost us 500 million. The total number of beds, I don't know if Busi is here, the total number of beds is about, private providers, about 7,000? Just under 7? 6.4. Okay, let's work on 6,000 for argument's sake. So what would that be? 6,000. What did I say? 2,000 is 500. 6,000 is 1.5 billion. So for us to wipe out those private providers will cost us close to 1.5 billion in today's money. Right? And so I think all that I'm trying to do is to say, let's just be pragmatic, given our resources. Obviously, we have the government department that is regularly making new investments in residential accommodation, and we have to put our case every time. We need another 1,000, can you give us another 1,000? As you're aware at the moment, we are deeply engaged with one of these operators to try and buy 2,000 beds, or thereabouts, 1,866 beds. You can see my code language. Yeah? So we're trying, given the money that the state gave us, and an additional loan that we would have to take out, we are able to bring in 1,866 beds, but we are not prepared to pay an exorbitant amount. We are seeking to pay in the region of 200 to 220,000 a bed. Yeah. So we hope. Yesterday in Mancom, our acting CFO was convinced that we're going to get this deal. I'm more cautious. I'm hopeful, but I'm cautious. This acting CFO is more optimistic. And so if we can pull that one off, right, that would be a big deal for us. If we can pull that one off, and we're going to try everything. Yeah? So that would be the first step towards 6,000 beds, right, that we would be taking as the institution. And then vacant positions, just to say that I did indicate in my opening remarks, I know you did this for rhetoric purposes, but in my opening remarks, I did, Joe, draw attention to the fact that a key next step for us is to align the organization to the strategy. And so all posts that are vacant will be reviewed against that background. And so we will make decisions on where to unfreeze. But again, keep in mind the unfreezing is related to our financial strength as an institution. On the issue of harassment by senior management and the threatening and bullying of colleagues, that has to stop. In fact, not has to stop, it must stop. It must stop. And so, Pat, you can explain that one and maybe say that you're taking action and talk to it.
Okay, good day, colleagues. The issue of bullying is not for the first time that it's raised. I think in some certain sections of the institution or portfolios, there is serious bullying that is happening. There's serious harassment that is happening. And many of the cases have been reported to our ER specialists. And I'm sure investigations are going on. And what I can indicate is that as a result of all these things, not only harassment and bullying, all these other cases have actually charged to my disciplinary cases money. There's nothing because there's too much hostile environment. People are fighting one another. I don't know what is happening. It would seem VUT does not love itself. It would seem that people that are at VUT, members of staff, do not love one another. And I don't know what is happening. And that kind of thing needs to change also. That we need to respect one another, which is one of the values of VUT. At this point in time, we are developing a policy, which is called corporate bullying policy, which we hopefully will be implemented and to make sure that we prevent acts of intimidation, acts of harassment, acts of bullying. My humble request is that, remember, we are here to take VUT forward. We are one community, We have to work together. We have to love one another. None one person is better than the other. We need to hold our hands together, to work together. We cannot be involved in investigating people from beginning to end. It must come to a stop. But remember, if there are any acts of intimidation, please report them to HR. We'll take decisive actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hadebe. Colleagues, can I take the two sets of questions now from the academic staff as well as the support staff? Can I start with academic staff members, please? If there are any questions?
I'm not an academic staff, but let me shoot. Thank you. Let me start by thanking you, Prof, for calling this meeting, because it really helped to clarify many misconceptions, many myths, many lies, many threats. We thank you for inviting us. Two, it will be wrong not to thank people who risked their lives, who fought for this university, who stood up and said, not in our lifetime that this university will go down the drain. Let me thank those people. I won't name them. Let me use an analogy of an unborn child. You know, some people will behave like a father who will deny a child during conception. But after the birth of that child, when that child is beautiful, it's nice, with beautiful eyes like mine, they will start saying, this is my child. I applaud those people who fought, despite some people who were believing that we were taking a right direction. Thank you to those people. Thank you for saving us. Prof, mine, it is a humble request that you involve us. After the report, we are looking forward for that report. And please, let's head raw. Invite us again, maybe just for a round to come and engage and try to assist with solutions. Because we often think that solutions reside somewhere up there with people with nice titles, doctors and professors. And we tend to ignore people around here. Answers are here because they are implementers. It is a humble request. Engage us, solutions are here. Because others were ignored because they were not part of a particular faction. So please, it's my humble request and thank you. Know from today, we all love you, even those who are against us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dash. Can I have one more question from support staff, please? That will be the last questions before we close our program.
Good morning, Prof. Good morning, Executive Committee members. Good morning, colleagues. Prof, I'm going to touch to a report that is my driver, which is the report that you were chairing, the ministerial report of 2011. I'm working at the residences. And for me personally, it's like Jesus came to earth. Because of the nature of the challenges that we are working with. I'm not going to give the names of the residences, and I'm not going to give the names of staff members who are working at the residences. I just want to give you an idea, and for me, it's really one of the key focus to address. We know we need to create a home away from home for our students. And with the situation we are in, it's definitely tough and impossible. With the 8,884 resident students, we know that there's no university without a welfare department or wardens or house parents. and now internally having 2,730. The report that you were chairing, Prof, the recommendations have been, or the recommendations are, it has to be at least 1:150. We have conducted benchmarking at all other universities, even those that are struggling financially. The allocation to the house parent duties is at least at the most 250. With us, to give you a clear picture, internally, with all our residences, it's 2,730 to 2 house parents. And one got so ill, seriously ill, we were left with 1. And it means the manager must also be the house parent, full time. We've got a lot of support from the acting dean of students. The 2 of us, we don't sleep. And I really want to applaud people who are working at other departments, particularly placement departments, who are supporting all these students internally and externally at the residences during when they need support. And we deal with cases where even men, young men, I won't mention names, where they collect fetuses and we collect drugs, all those things. Some of them I could manage to keep them there in my office. I now know all types of drugs, and we kept them. I kept them for evidence. And after having gone through, I'll also give you a picture. For Bedworth Park, we have 3,095 students, and it's a one young gentleman who goes through all that. And really, we don't even have an official where we can debrief. And all these people are employed on contract. They don't have medical benefits. Meaning they can't even go to psychologists and debrief. Hence people, I'm not getting surprised when people say to me, Faith, I'm loaded, I really need to go home and see how I can recover. Because we don't have an EAP employee. We know Sister Muluko is assisting, but we've never been explained or told to what extent is he assisting. But at the residences, with all the things that we are dealing with, particularly the issues of abortions, legal or not legal, and drugs, and security issues, poverty alleviation, that department, we have students who don't, especially the B.Tech students, who don't have bursaries. We know their bursaries are not going beyond funding them after their first degree. Now the problem is we don't have food, we don't even have allocation for food, and we applaud Dr. Narisa for assisting us now as we approach exams. So would you please focus on the issue of this department at the residences? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Faith. There's one more question. Yeah, academic staff, please. We need your comments or questions, please. Go ahead, ma'am, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Prof. Rensberg. At least I got this opportunity because I'm in advocacy. I'm standing here for first year students. I'm Hazel Mchonchi. I'm the first year coordinator. And we have an enrollment of 5,600 first year students. And I'm the only one who runs the show around VUT in terms of the programs and making sure that things are running for first year students. And first year students are actually very important in this academic institution because they are actually coming in and then we are looking at them and supporting them until the throughput rate. My plea, because it's the first time that I get a platform when management is around in terms of support for first year students. We have programs, we even have parents' meetings. I've started a new thing of inviting parents so that management can actually address our parents, regarding their students. Parents come as far as Venda, Limpopo, they come Mpumalanga, Cape, KwaZulu-Natal. But you'll be disappointed that you'll only find one MENCO member in that parents' meeting. And I do extend an invite. And also for practical examples that we have as students support. I call out even to the lecturers. I speak to lecturers. I walk. People who know me, I'm all over. I even I've not been to Prof. Rensbeck's office, but probably I will visit him. Because I believe I want to go there so that my story is told and they understand where I come from. Because when I write an email is either he will read it or he might not read it. But he would not understand the passion that I have for first year students. And they're suffering. I hear she's talking about residences, but I'm talking about, everybody's talking about caring for personnel and all that. But nobody has a student voice. Who is taking care of our students? I'm posing also this question to lecturers here. Our students are suffering. We have lecturers who are not coming to class, and then tutors must take over. Tutors must take over the exams. Tutors must take over everything must be taken over because we have absence of lecturers within the classes.
Okay.
And that also affects our first year students.
Okay.
The pass rate now in June, our sharing with faculties, the pass rate is for all first year students. It's 45% when you put the LONA together. And that is not a good reflection.
Okay.
I will sit down for now.
Okay.
But
thank you very much for your colleagues, I'm mindful of the time. We've run out of time. Can I have one question from academics now before we close? Remember, all other questions can be filled to the emails or suggestions. Thank you. Prof.
I'm speaking on behalf of academics. The previous speaker has hit the nail on the head. It is true, it happens. And it's something that is, Prof, you say you use the right word, pragmatic, realistic. Thank you, Prof, for coming to our institution. When we were in the Senate, you asked that question. People have been here for ages, but what have they done? I'm one of them. I'm one of the culprits. I've been here, but I haven't done anything. And I've been here, I've been subjected to all those things that are unimaginable, but we have persevered. We are here, say. I'm speaking on behalf of research, Dr. Nelana. As researchers, we've been supported in this institution. Honestly, we are supported. I wouldn't be standing here if research was not supporting us. However, we now have a new area that we refer to as focus areas, the niche areas. These are new areas in the institution that really need support. There is an NRF document that speaks to this. And as we are navigating into the space, we really need to look at how we can be supported with this. And we start ideas, we come with ideas, we conceptualize, we put things into place. But unfortunately, we are never supported enough. At the last meeting of the Law Clinic, you heard how people were complaining about that. We are not saying that the university is complacent, but we are just saying some cognizance need to be given so as to be able to give the researchers who have initiated the niche area support. We really need this. The University of Pretoria is 5 years ahead of us. However, as we are coming up and as nestlings, we need support so that we know exactly how to go about with all our new niche area, in spite of the fact that we do have an NRF document that speaks to this. Your support will be highly appreciated, sir. Dr. Nelana, you are commended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. I think, colleagues, that takes us to the end of the questions. I'll ask Prof. Rensbeck to respond.
You see, if this is going to be a response, that's a problem. You see, I had asked us earlier to apply our minds to be intellectually present. It's simply not okay to be shouting. It's simply not okay to say, I have a question that was not asked. And then we should just ask everybody to ask a question. We're trying to be pragmatic, right? So can we please just lower our temperatures? Those of us who feel that we've not been heard. Yeah? Instead, what we have asked you is to share with us your concerns. So, what I'm going to do, where's the microphone? Just take it to the lady in front here who was protesting. And I'm going to give you 60 seconds. How's that? Cool. Is there another microphone at the back for the last intervention? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Prof. You touched on support. I'm an academic staff in the Visual Arts and Design Department. It will be very much appreciated if you take a walk down K Block and see what challenges we are faced with as being academics. The values that we have to work with, they are beyond recognition. You talked as well about leave, that we take leave on Friday and Mondays. What about our mental health as academic staff? I hear everybody's talking about student this, student that, student this. What about us as academic staff? Because we need to also live and be healthy and be accountable and be ready to be actually lecturing. But we cannot be pouring from an empty cup. So the institution, can they also have facilities for us to get support? Because we are also suffering as academic staff as well. And also, what are our academic rights? We are being bullied not only by senior staff, but also students. You come to a space to lecture. They have the right to go to SRC and so forth and come and belittle you in front of everybody else. So how are we supposed to deliver what we're supposed to deliver when we are not supported as academic staff? I thank you.
Thank you, Prof, and you are welcome. I'm an academic, I'm Mr. Nkosi, but I'm speaking on behalf of the contract staff, who are the most discriminated against people here at VUT. Over the years, as Prof has rightly pointed out, that people have been having one-year contracts without benefits. It's a right step that at least we're going towards 3 years. Now the question is, are these 3 years accompanied by benefits? Thank you.
Almost said comrade. You see, I spoke about this earlier. I thought that you listened carefully. And my message, I'll repeat it. If there is no water at the well, yeah? If there is no water at the well, what happens next? Figure that out. And so what we are seeking to do is now being thrown in our faces. I mean, that's how we feel as management. What you are saying to us is this step that we have taken is a useless step and we must go and change our decision. Yeah? Because that's how we feel sitting up here. Now you're asking us for benefits. I thought I answered that question by saying that Nahau, Ujo and them are threatening us with section blah blah blah. I am saying when the well has run dry, then we also have to look at another section to begin to cut back stuff. I'm being blunt. Because we have to face the facts on the ground, as one Irish poet would have said. We've got to face the facts on the ground. What are those facts? Those facts are that we have to take little steps at a time in order to redress your situation. We're not saying that that's the ideal situation. No. But we're saying this is the first step. Yeah? And we can only consider next steps based on how well we do as an institution. Are we attracting top students? Are we able to maintain our enrollment targets? Are we able to mobilize the resources are we stewarding those resources properly? That's what That's what's going to make it possible for us to respond and put in place the next step. And so that's my response to your very deep concern. It is not a response of somebody who has no concern. In fact, it's an issue that I addressed yesterday at Management Committee. And I'd said at Management Committee, it is simply inconceivable for us simply to say, okay, we're going to insource workers who belong to that part of the working class that is the worst paid. They experience similar conditions to workers who are working as police officers, the lowest level constable. If we think that we've got psychological challenges, why is it that a policeman goes in apart from the gender-based violence, but what are the psychological factors that causes him to go and shoot his colleague? And so we're going to insource that kind of worker into the organization. And if we're simply going to say we've ticked the box, we've insourced, we've got it wrong. And so I've asked the team, I've asked Pet to say, can we begin to bring these people in, in medical aid, what do you call this thing, medical aid and life cover and funeral cover and all of those things. They're not nice things. They're essential things. Bring in those people to come and look at designing packages. This is not new. It's been done at UJ, it's been done at other places. I'm just talking about that segment of worker now. And so ticking the box is not good enough. And so we are seized with the issue. And so we're not, an employer or managers who tick boxes only in the organization. We're deeply concerned about your welfare. And so, as we close out, I've taken note of the many other issues that have been raised, from the staffing situation in our residences, through to the living conditions in those residences, which is not new to me. Taken notice of the issue of first-year support, very important and very critical work that we're doing as residence managers and as first-year support staff. It's important that we have passion. It reminded me, I made a note here, that some of us say that we are employed for 20 years. How many 20 years and more? Hands up. How many 20 years and more? Okay, cool. How many 30 years and more? Good. Good. Okay, I won't ask 40 years and more. I'm sure someone will stand up. And I just have this little thing, and the reason I mention this is because in a different context it arose, because typically what people say, hey, I've been teaching for 30 years. I've been teaching for 30 years, township style. 30 years. I've been teaching. Yeah? Look at me. I've been teaching for 30 years. And then I kind of tongue-in-cheek, jokingly will say, is that 1 year repeated 20 times? Or is it 20 years of going through, engaging intellectually with what I'm doing, and all the time rising, never slowing down, never going down. And that's our challenge. It is about rising all the time, about rising. Sometimes the rise is steep. Sometimes it is not so steep. it is a little bit more gentle, the rise. That's our challenge, is to recognize the moments when we rise steeply and rise steeply. To recognize the moments where it's a more gentle rise and rise gently. For some of us in the next 2 years, it's going to be a sharp rise. For some of us, others of us, it's going to be a bit more gentle. For some of us, it's going to be sharp and then gentle. For others, initially gentle and then a sharp rise. And I'm just asking us to constantly reflect on what it means. I always make the point that from the protection services officer who greets you at the gate, through to the gardener who beautifies our place, through to the cleaner who cleans our rubbish, that we don't want to clean, by the way, through to our administrators and secretaries who receive receptionists on the phone and at the offices, through to everyone in support staff, through to every academic. Each one of us matters equally. But more importantly, those of us from the administrator, sideways and down, our job is to make sure our academics flourish so that our students flourish. Please, let's keep that in mind. And please, let's not take ourselves too seriously. That's another final lesson I offer us. You know what I mean by that? You know what I mean by that? Don't take yourself too seriously. You know, some of us, the way we walk. Yeah? Yeah? The way we walk, it's a power walk. Whereas what is required is a humble walk. Confident, but humble. Right? For some of us, the office is the power game. We've got to stop that. We've got to take the office seriously and ourselves less seriously. In essence, what I mean by that is, don't become puffed up. Don't become elevated in your head. Don't become that persona. Please don't. Every one of us, from the gate right through, let's take the office. And I'm serious. I consider someone who is a protection services officer, that is an office. That's an office. It's a position of stature and significance. The gardener is an office, it's a position of stature and significance, more so because this is a university. I'm not saying Department of Home Affairs is less, but this is the university. This is Vaal University of Technology. And so each one of us carries stature, carries responsibility, is accountable, and does the very best that we can be, inclusive of the administrator. And so this bullying nonsense must stop. Because that's part of this drama. That we can move and shove people and colleagues around as if they are bloomin' machines. That must stop. And it doesn't stop because the abused shouts fire. It doesn't stop because the one who is abused shouts trouble. It starts when the one who's abused says, stop this nonsense. It will not happen again. And it's when the rest of us who see it happen say, stop this nonsense, not in my name. That's when it stops. So yes, there are policies and there are disciplinary proceedings that we must go through and appoint investigator after investigator. But it's not going to stop until all of us say it stops and we stop looking the other way. It's the same with gender-based violence. It stops when the abuse says it stops now. And when those of us who have watched it rise up and say, I've seen it and it's going to stop. And we're going to out you. And so I'm not calling for vigilantism in the institution, please. I'm simply calling for you to recognize the power that sits in each one of you, each one of us. Each one of us, as that saying goes, is powerful beyond imagination. So please, seize your power. And please show up. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
Right. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Can we please, we've come to the end of our program. Can we please allow the management team to exit the hall first, and then we follow. Thank you.